Welcome back to Out of the Fog. I'm so excited to introduce you to our next guest. It is Olympic gold medalist, world champion ice dancer, Tessa Virtue.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh no, thanks so much for coming here.
What a pleasure.
So you're here on the Rock the Rink tour. You've been here on tour before, but this is a really special tour. You've been across the country now, and there's a show coming up in St. John's. What can people look forward to seeing that's fun about this show?
Well, it's time to rock the rock.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to be back, and this is sort of the culmination of our 27-city tour and the culmination of our career together. So it's incredibly significant, really meaningful to us, and St. John's has always had a close place in our hearts, a really a special place, and it's a fun tour. It's a great cast. We brought in some of our international friends and favorite skaters. Carolina Costner from Italy, Max and Tatiana, a Russian pair team, Jeremy Abbott from the States, and then of course staples like Caitlin Osmond,
of course, hometown hero.
Own, Elvis Stoico, Patrick Chan. It's a fun-filled night, and hopefully just an entertaining one where people can kind of escape, dance along with us, clap their hands, and enjoy some figure skating. And
I understand there's been like a live band, and there's some kind of extra elements that you don't get in competitions, right?
That's right. It is nice to perform without the pressure of, those rules, limitations, and the notion of being judged. I mean, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves still because we want it to be a good show. But it's important to us that having that carte blanche artistic freedom, that we still take people on a journey and tell a story, and people are able to sit in their seats and feel something with us. So it's been neat for us to put on the entertainer hat instead of just the perfectionist competitor hat.
Just the perfectionist.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure we've managed that balance perfectly yet, but it's a fun show to do, that's for sure, and it's a great way for us to go out.
And you mentioned people in their seats having feelings. I think that people on the ice are going to have a lot of feelings this show too. You mentioned it's your last show together with Scott. Yeah, like what is that like going into this and the build-up and knowing that this in St. John's is going to be your last show together?
I feel so fortunate that we've had this whole tour to really let that information percolate and digest the fact that it is the end, because no other athlete has the freedom to do that, or very few really get to walk away on their own terms in their own way, and I feel very much in control of this. And I think it speaks to how we've really operated our whole career, in that we want to do it in our own way. And I think taking that responsibility and accountability for the show and really curating an exit, it just feels right. The timing feels right. It's emotional, it's bittersweet. It's the end of a significant part of our lives as partners, but it's also the beginning of something really exciting. I mean, we're both launching ourselves into new ventures and exploring new possibilities and potential outside of skating, and I think after 22 years together, that's refreshing, timely, and inevitable.
So 22 years is a long time, and we all have coworkers, we all work with people in whatever profession or interest or job we have, but what you guys had is next level, right? Sorry, you're still skating, but what you have is next level, right? You are so interconnected, and the communication between you on ice is spectacular, and no doubt led to your success. So could you describe how that relationship kind of develops and how you feel about your professional relationship with Scott?
It's always been at the core of everything we've done. I think it's been our greatest asset as a team, that connectivity and that communication that we've shared. It's been such a safe place for us. When we're on the ice together, it's as if nothing else exists, and we're able to really find our stride together. And that longevity is also quite rare. I mean, we started skating together when we were just 7 and 9, and surely no one saw potential in us back then. But from an early age, we worked with a coach who emphasized things like communication, trust, open dialogue, supportiveness in one another. And I think we cultivated this code of respect because there were certain boundaries we just never crossed. And to this day, we're each other's #1 fan. And I think that positive attribution theory is really at the crux of it all, because we've always been there for one another, and it's been a lot of highs and lows, and as one can imagine, a bit of a roller coaster, but even that, I think, adds to our strength, in knowing one another so well.
Sure. And in that relationship, I mean, on ice, you are as, your field is as stylistic as it is technical, right? So part of that's performance-based. And I think because of your achievements in that, I know you've been plagued with the question forever about whether or not you had a relationship. I know that's not true, but did you ever get driven, were you driven nuts by that question, or do you take it as a compliment of we're doing our jobs?
I think the latter. I mean, it definitely was a compliment in that we were telling the story, and we love to. We really love to get into character, and that's our job. I think, as a man and a woman on the ice, it's inevitable that it's a love story, and whether that's passionate romance or drama, sadness, whatever it is, the center is that storytelling ability from a man and a woman's perspective.
Yeah, you're actors as much as you are athletes.
Yeah, and I think, there's also a deeper level of something inexplicable between us. There's a bond that even we don't fully understand, and I think that's just because of the sheer amount of time we've had to spend together. It's abnormal. And the work we put into it. I mean, we've been doing basically marriage counseling since we were 10 years old. So the fact that we invested so much time and energy every single day into nurturing this partnership, that's what people see. They just don't know it maybe. They see it as chemistry, but what really is there is a really deep-rooted level of care and affection for one another as humans.
And speaking of all that work, I mean, I think for a lot of us, it's hard to wrap our heads around just how much work goes into, I guess, physically training to compete at the level you competed at. Is there, does it go in cycles, or do you take breaks, or is it just your whole life has been trying to perform at peak performance?
It was quite steady for much of our career. I mean, we worked with Russian coaches for 10 years, so there was really no taking a break, maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year. And in the end, as mature athletes, when we were a little bit older, we needed to focus on recovery, and I think we just knew better our energy expenditure and what we needed to feel our best. But that was a very sophisticated team of people around us. In the end, those last 2 years, everyone from our mental prep coach to our nutritionist to massage therapist to physio, osteo, I mean, I think there were about 15 people on our team, and every month we would sit at a boardroom table, and Scott and I would run a meeting, and we would figure out how to bring out the best out of our team. And yeah, a lot of hard work, absolutely, but we needed to learn to listen to our bodies. And I think as athletes, it's ingrained in us to just sort of drive yourself into a wall and then crash. Instead, we were able to match subjective and objective data, whether that was with brainwaves or journaling, trainability, measuring. I mean, it was kind of crazy. We really took things to an extreme, but I think probably changed the way people train in ice dance.
And coming off such an intense training schedule with such a supportive team around you, all with this big common goal to be the best in the world, which you did, of course, what's it like after that? How do you kind of go on with your life in a new direction after all that?
It was so strange because we competed February 20th, was our free dance of 2018, and basically on the 21st, that whole safety net of a support network was not there anymore. Not because they didn't love us,
it's not personal,
but it was just that we had achieved that goal.
Yep.
And there was such power of that singular focus for all of us, because everything in our lives was filtered through the lens of, will this help me become Olympic champion? And whether it was deciding on what to have for dinner, what vacation to take, the mindset I had walking into the rink, all of it was, can I become Olympic champion? And without that, I sort of felt lost, not unprepared to step into the new roles that were presented to me, but lost in that I felt like suddenly I was trying to balance 100 things instead of just being really good at one and specializing at one thing. And it was liberating and freeing in a lot of ways. I think athletes are often extremists, so the pendulum swung, and anything that made me feel like an athlete, I wanted to get away from. But in filling my schedule and trying to stay busy and being so excited about new opportunities, I just don't think I allowed myself the time to process it. And the higher the high, the lower the low, and that crash was something really real, emotionally, mentally, physically. There was a lot to process, and suddenly after Pyeongchang, we're also doing that in the public eye a little bit more.
Big time.
There was a shift there. So I think there was just new pressure that we had to learn to deal with, and luckily we had sort of been through it before. After Sochi, we took a step back. And I think it's just part of any kind of life transition. You know, at the time, I think I thought it was so unique in experiencing these things, but I looked around and realized, you know, people are changing jobs or moving or having families or, you know, so many transitions in one's life, and everyone can relate. You know, athletes are not in a league of their own in any way.
Well, everyone can relate, sure, to change in their lives, but I think there is something, I guess, unique about competing at the highest level at something, all the attention at the Olympics, which all athletes get, but certainly you and Scott got in spades. Like, do you think there's enough kind of supports for people after that, or there could be an opportunity for more?
I think we're working on that. You know, Canada was quick to admit that they were behind even other countries in that transition planning, but we're working on that. I mean, programs like Game Plan are making a big difference in giving athletes opportunities, and whether that's with support systems and therapy sessions, learning how to train as a human instead of just a focused athlete, or offering opportunities at Queen's University for business leadership skills or MBA programs, things like that. I think there are programs in place. It will just be about now teaching athletes how to utilize them, because sometimes we can be lone wolves, and it's hard to ask for help. And again, that's something that everyone struggles with.
And I know you have been really busy since the Olympics. It's interesting to hear you say you kind of went from having this like one big job to a million things that you're trying to balance. You've been, I know, sponsoring and involved with lots of different companies, different charities, and things like that. So, I mean, does that help being busy? And how do you go about kind of selecting what you're going to jump into?
I feel so fortunate. I mean, I've been able to partner with some incredible companies, and I've learned a lot, even from a business standpoint. I mean, it was never about posing with a product. It was really understanding market implementation and strategy for these companies, and more importantly, getting to fully understand their messaging and their value system, because that needed to be in line for me. And it's pretty clear if you look at the people that I've partnered with, there's a common theme. And a lot of it has to do with empowering women and helping other people feel really good in their skin, to use Nivea's tagline. So that came pretty easily. I established a mission statement early on, both personally and professionally, and that helped filter through a lot of questions, you know, because I was able to overlay a company's with my own and see if it's a natural fit. And if I'm lending my name, my voice to something, that's meaningful. And I think, you know, not being oversaturated and really being thoughtful about who I partner with was something that I spent a long time planning for and thinking about. And even philanthropically, like, it's been really special to jump into programs like with Special Olympians. We've been partnering with them for a long time and working together, but including them in the Rock the Rink tour was really important to Scott and me. And
so how does that work on Rock the Rink? How do you include the Special Olympians?
In each city we have a Special Olympian perform, and so they get the spot, and every night it's the biggest ovation, the biggest applause, and on site people can donate to Special Olympics, and that's been, I think, the highlight of the tour without question for us.
I got to go back to the business thing, because, I mean, earlier you mentioned that, you know, you and Scott would be at a boardroom table and kind of, you know, with this team, and you'd be setting this goal, and you're kind of running a business in that way, right? But then, and now you're talking about how you have this kind of lens where you're looking at companies you're going to partner with. There's obviously like an entrepreneurial business thing going on in there with you. So is that something that I guess you're going to take the next steps on and get more involved in the business world? What's next for you?
I think so. I mean, as an athlete, I feel like I've always been my own boss. Yeah. And Scott and I have been, you know, partners in everything. So that entrepreneurial spirit runs pretty deeply, and I do think that's probably next for me. It would be difficult for me to fit into someone else's corporate structure, and yet, as much as I've learned, I'm so keen to dive more deeply into things, and I would like to do my MBA at Queen's next fall, and
oh, great!
Like to start a company, and I think sort of embrace that new challenge. I need a new task and something to sink my teeth into.
An MBA, I mean, that's MBA from Queen's. That sounds pretty tough, but I know you're up for it because you actually have a degree already.
I'm just trying to finish my last few credits for a psychology degree, so I've been continually doing my undergrad through all of this.
Well, it's incredible you've been able to do an undergrad while
it's been a great balance, and psychology is applicable to any and everything. So I've loved learning about it.
Yeah, it's true. Psychology is definitely applicable to sports and business.
Yes, I always joke that I've had a 22-year case study with Scott in our partnership.
Definitely. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Tessa Virtue.